Good Tuesday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and thank you kindly for joining us on the Jerry and Jerry Show. Today's program, as always, features the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe, his namesake website, jerryratcliffe.com, a website we are on every day. My favorite piece of content the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer produces is his scatter shooting column, and he's got one front and center on jerryratcliffe.com, a column that I've read, this is going to date me a little bit, for 24 years. A column that I had the pleasure of perusing before it was published in the newspaper as a lowly stringer, then staff writer, then preps editor at the Daily Progress. The scatter shooting column, my favorite of all the Hootie Ratcliffe pieces. Judah Wickhauer, the director and producer behind the camera, but a critical component of all our shows. My friend, if you could go to the studio camera and then the two-shot and welcome the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe. My friend, good Tuesday morning to you.
Same to you, and don't describe yourself as a lowly whatever. You were everybody on that staff.
We worked our tails off.
Played an important role in producing what I thought during our time was the finest sports section in the state of Virginia.
Well said. The section that drove the most readership and subscribership at the Daily Progress was the sports section, and it wasn't even close. And if anyone wants a glimpse of what it's like to be in a smaller town newsroom, the sports department, we were a motley crew that worked hard, we played hard, and I'll tell you what, we burnt the midnight oil. Many of us leaving the newspaper at 1 in the morning on just about every day, working holidays, working nights, working weekends to give the community the coverage we felt they deserved. And that's what Jerry Ratcliffe is doing right now on jerryratcliffe.com. The scatter shooting column is out. My friend, it's loaded with information. And usually the scatter shooting column is front and center, especially when it includes Tony Bennett contract details, Brian O'Connor contract details, Wahoos in the Summer League, Virginia recruiting and Virginia football, basketball recruiting, notebooks and tidbits. But for this particular show, it's in the on-deck circle for Danielle Collins and Emma Navarro. Emma Navarro, 10:30 roughly today, she plays in the quarterfinals. You and I both watched her play Coco Gauff, the number 2 seed in the tournament, and the second-ranked player in the world. And Coco Gauff, Hootie Ratcliffe, was at her wit's end.
She truly was. You almost felt sorry for her because she just became unglued the deeper they got into the match. It had to be frustrating because Navarro was so poised, particularly on that stage, knowing what was at stake and the fact that she hadn't been that deep in a major Grand Slam tournament before. And her game was flawless, her poise was flawless, and she was like a human backboard. I mean, everything that Gauff attacked her with, she returned it and she was the one making Gauff run all over the court and wearing her out, and her placement and just dominated the entire match. She was so aggressive, and that's what Gauff normally is.
She did a fantastic job of attacking Coco Gauff's forehand.
Yes.
And forehand, the known weakness with Coco Gauff. And Emma Navarro, as the match wore on, just overwhelmed her on that side of the court. Coco Gauff's coach, and he is sitting in the box watching Coco Gauff, is Brad Gilbert, Andre Agassi's former coach.
Right.
The commentator and broadcaster, Brad Gilbert. And Brad Gilbert wearing a black hat, I don't know how I would describe it, a bucket hat, Brad Gilbert's hat, is trying everything humanly possible to reason with Coco Gauff, get her to calm down, motivate her, encourage her. Nothing was working. And he, just like a young child who was misbehaving right before bedtime, felt the ire of a parent, Coco Gauff, in this situation, with ripping and complaining and yelling and screaming. And then Emma Navarro on the other side of the court, just cool, calm, and collected.
Absolutely, and that speaks volumes to her being 23 years old, and again, at that stage with everything on the line, she was just totally under control the entire match. I only think I heard her shout once over one of the mistakes she made. She didn't like one of the shots, but that was amazing to me that she showed that kind of composure for that period of time and such a stage as you mentioned.
Virginia tennis is just absolutely on fire, ladies and gentlemen. Fortunate to have yet another program, not only contending on the national level, but producing talent that's capable of contending on a global level. Swimming program is a perfect example of that as well. We have golfers playing in the U.S. Open, 3 of them. The athletic department across the board is just so impressive. We will give you updates on Emma Navarro's match today on the Jerry and Jerry Show. It should start in the next 8 to 10 minutes. We're following it on our in-studio television, so stay posted there. A not so sweet a finish for Danielle Collins. Still, she makes it, to the 4th round?
Yeah, the round of 16.
Round of 16.
And it was a tribute to her to do that as well. And, I mean, she's had an incredible year. Maybe the best year she's ever had. And also will be on the U.S. Olympic team with
Emma Navarro.
With Emma Navarro. And so she's enjoying just a banner year.
Danielle Collins, her career winding down, Hootie. Looking to start a family, Danielle Collins.
Yeah, I suppose so. And I'm sure that's very hard to do when you're trying to play on the circuit like she does. So good for her. I mean, she's earned everything she's gotten. And she came up the more challenging way. I don't think she came up through the country club systems and the great tennis schools and all that stuff. I think she had to scrap for everything she got, playing on public courts and everything, coming from a modest background. And so I think that's what's made her such a fierce competitor. They call her Danimal because sometimes she
brings it.
She comes.
She's
she
super
comes at you
alpha.
pretty hard.
She's extremely aggressive. She's tenacious. She's bulldog. And it's not just with the people she's playing against. It's her own team, her trainers, her coaches. You speak to her coaches. You speak to her hitting partners, her trainers, and she knows one speed, one level of intensity. She's not there to make friends.
Right.
She's there to perform at the highest clip possible. I've spoken with some of her previous hitting partners, and they said she's a challenging person to work with, but the reason she is at that level of intensity is because she's one of those athletes that has to play that way to perform.
You admire that. She's hungry. She's came in hungry, and she stayed hungry all these years, and that's I think that's the mark of a winner.
Absolutely. Wimbledon, a fantastic showing for the Wahoo tennis program. Navarro has Jasmine Paulini and on center court, quarterfinal match. This is set to kick off anytime now. We'll follow it. There's a match right before hers that's going deeper in the second set than expected, so it's slowing the start down. But we'll give you updates if it starts during the Jerry and Jerry Show. Other topics we got to cover on the program, including some of the lead items of your scatter shooting column, the Tony Bennett contract details. Coach Bennett, the second highest paid coach, it looks like, in the Atlantic Coast Conference, behind John Shire, which I found startling, over $7 million, more than $7 million a year for the Duke basketball coach.
Yeah, and before we go there, Emma's 3-0 life career-wise against Paulini, and she's favored to win today's match and has been established as the second highest favorite to win Wimbledon. So that's pretty high cotton.
That's very high cotton. Very high cotton.
But yeah, I was a little surprised that Shire is making north of $7 million a year. We've been told. We don't know that to be exact, because Duke is a private school and they don't make those salaries public. But there's usually ways to find out. And what I was surprised is that, and I don't know how accurate this is, but Hubert Davis making $2.6 million a year. He might need to get a new agent.
You're saying you thought that was low for a UNC basketball
I
program?
thought that was low. And
Yeah.
Tony Bennett's making more than $4 million a year, and that's going to go up as he continues on. But certainly he deserves every penny of what he gets, and being the second highest paid coach in the ACC. Some people might argue he should be paid maybe more than Shire, because what's Shire done?
Exactly. What's Shire done? That was my surprise. Is what has John Shire done? The Cavaliers skipper Tony Bennett, at his Hootie Ratcliffe reports, has some pretty nice little bonus structure set up here. Let me highlight some aspects of the scatter shooting column. If Tony Bennett is still UVA's coach on March 15th, 2025, he gets an additional bonus of $400,000. He gets an additional $1 million bonus if he's still the coach of March 15th, 2027. Another $400K if he's the coach March 15th, 2029, and another $1 million if he makes it to March 15, 2031. 2031, not that far away. If he makes it all the way to 2031, we're looking at $2,800,000 in additional bonuses, Hootie.
Yeah, it's just a longevity
I like how they structure it that way.
clause in the contract. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I think Brian O'Connor has a similar longevity clause, maybe not as high as Bennett's, but still impressive. And plus, both of these guys get the normal bonuses for being Coach of the Year, ACC National Coach of the Year, getting their team finishing in the top 25, or their progression in the NCAA tournament, and all those sorts of bonuses and things like that. So, good for those guys.
How about the Brian O'Connor tidbits? The contract details. Chris Graham did a Freedom of Information Act, which you highlighted in the scatter shooting column. He gets a nice little pay bump, a deserved pay bump.
Absolutely, and that puts him in the top 10 highest paid baseball coaches in America, which
I was shocked he's not there.
he's mostly, me too.
Because he's the winningest coach in college baseball since coming to UVA.
And it's mostly him and the SEC coaches.
Right.
So, he did get a nice little pay bump up from a little bit more than $700,000 a year to $1.4 million, I believe.
Almost a 2x pay bump.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And very deserving. What he's done with Virginia's baseball program is unparalleled. And, part of it, is rewarding what he's done, but also part of it is to protect yourself, to keep him in your fold, because we know other programs have come after him in the past, and there was a rumor that Texas A&M approached him this year after the season. There's been some questions about how accurate some of that reporting was, but that particularly on the salary they were claiming he was offered, which was I think a little way over what it really was. But you want to keep guys like him and Tony Bennett happy.
Frankie Bourne says, good morning, Jerry and Jerry. Frankie, we love when you watch the program. Thank you kindly for watching the show. Kevin Yancey says, good morning, Jay Thrice, with a nod, a tip of the cap to Judah Wickower. He says Mike Martin has to be in that conversation as well. The gentleman from Waynesboro, Kevin Yancey, watching the show. We're talking the contract details of Tony Bennett and of Brian O'Connor. Make a legitimate argument. Maybe your two best coaches at the University of Virginia, and there's a laundry list of fantastic coaches at the University of Virginia. The Brian O'Connor package, think about this from a reward or significant standpoint. Last year, he's paid $717,111 per year. Now, a 3-year extension, $1.4 million, making him one of the top 10 highest paid coaches in the nation and pushing his contract through the 2031 season, 7 years from now. Thank goodness.
Yeah, he and Tony Bennett both have contracts through 31. And those longevity clauses are certainly nice incentives to keep them coaching for sure. Yeah. So kudos to Carlo Williams for locking up both those guys for another 5-6 years down the road.
Do you see these two guys having name recognition on their respective playing surfaces potentially?
It would certainly be warranted, I think. I still think Terry Holland should be honored in some way as well for what he did for Virginia basketball. But certainly Tony Bennett is deserving of any kind of recognition he gets in that line. And so is Brian O'Connor. I mean, Virginia baseball would not be Virginia baseball without his efforts, and what great representatives for the University of Virginia both those guys have been. They've been role models to kids and coaches all over the country. Never any controversy, just they do everything the right way.
Virginia baseball guys in great hands, so is this basketball team. On your scatter shooting column, you had some Virginia recruiting information, some tidbits, some golden nuggets for the basketball team. And many of us locally that follow the prep scene are very curious to see what happens with a lightning quick point guard from St. Anne's Belfield right here in Charlottesville, Virginia, Hootie.
Yeah, Chance Mallory, 5'9" point guard at St. Anne's Belfield, has been dynamic. Going back through this past season and maybe even before, but he really flashed on everyone's radar this past year. He had a phenomenal year at St. Anne's and was scoring incredible amount of points. I think he averaged like 26 points a game, had over 40 at least once, and you know, he has narrowed his choices to 6 finalists and plans to visit all 6 schools. Virginia, of course, is one of those. Miami, Clemson, Virginia Tech, Villanova, and Tennessee are the others. And he and Nate Ament, I guess it's Ament or Ament, I'm not sure, who is a 5-star, and ranked the number 7 player in the country at any position, which would make him, if he would come to Virginia, he would be the highest ranked player to ever
in history
play for Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
And he's narrowed his list to Virginia, Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Tennessee, Michigan, and UConn. So both of those guys are set to visit UVA the weekend of September 13th, 15th, and I mean, wow! You would hope to get at least one of those guys, and if you could get both of them, what a recruiting coup that would be for Tony Bennett.
Chance Mallory, guys, a 5'9" point guard. If you haven't had a chance to see some of his highlight reel, some of his mixtape, it's all over Twitter, it's all over Instagram, it's all over the web. The man, when he's playing basketball, Chance Mallory, I know he's in high school, but he looks like a man among boys when he's playing. He's playing at a level of quickness and speed that just is noticeable to the eye when you see him playing. He's got body control, he's got quickness, he's got handles. He could finish around the rim despite a 5'9" frame. He utilizes unorthodox finishing ability with various Englishes and spins, finishing under the hoop so his shot doesn't get blocked. He's got a teardrop. He's got a floater that keeps his shot from being blocked. He has a good jump shot. He plays both sides of the basketball. he seems to be a Kihei Clark with a little bit more offensive polish.
Yeah, and incredibly quick. Which
Like Kihei.
Yeah, maybe even quicker.
Which says something.
It does, and I mean he's just he's developed so quickly and really brought his game along, and I mean that would be awesome if they could find a way to get him into the Virginia fold, because especially being a hometown kid, and Ament is a Virginia kid. He's from Warrenton. So what a dynamic pair of recruits that would be if you could find a way to somehow steal them both, because obviously they're in great demand. And Ament has had a pretty impressive summer so far. His last 3 games, he's had 24-8, 32-13. He hit 6 out of 10 3-pointers in that game, and 41 points, 27 rebounds, and 6 blocks in one game a couple of weeks ago. So both these guys are capable of putting up big numbers.
This is the class of 2025 for those that are asking online. This is the class that could, in a lot of ways, leave, be on the roster for Coach Bennett as he heads to that 2031 season, which he's under contract through. So we'll follow it closely. We got football recruiting news to highlight as well in today's program, which is in Hootie's scatter shooting column. The football recruiting rankings are starting to improve after an extremely slow start, Hootie.
Yeah, it was a very slow start, and some of the early recruits really weren't eye-popping because Virginia was beating out, I thought, lesser programs for the services of some of those guys. And sometimes you can make a judgment about the quality of recruit that way. Sometimes you can't, because it's more about the coach's eye and whoever's recruiting you, and if they feel like that you can fit into their system, and particularly at the position they're recruiting you to play. So, but in recent weeks, some of the guys they've gained commitments from, they've had 5 commitments in the past couple of weeks. Some of these guys are pretty big. He's got a guy recently that picked Virginia over Georgia. He was offered by Georgia. And now the latest guy, Corey Costner, a 3-star from Baltimore, picked Virginia over Notre Dame, North Carolina, Michigan State, Penn State, Virginia Tech, Tennessee, Wisconsin, and Indiana. And I mean that's a pretty high caliber kid right there. He's a 4-star by On3, and the number 11 defensive back at his spot in the country. So I think that's kind of a recruiting coup right there. His mom went to UVA, and he visited a bunch of these schools. Even went to Carolina, I think, 3 times, but ended up a Cavalier, and that's a really big recruit for Tony Elliott's staff.
Your scatter shooting column had a interesting tidbit in it when you're ranking the ACC schools from a recruiting standpoint. You did a fantastic job of the 2025 recruiting class. Excuse me. This is the recruiting classes across the ACC, and you have Miami, Clemson, SMU, Georgia Tech, all the ACC teams ranked by media platform. What stood out to me was the positioning of SMU in these rankings.
Yeah.
Like, you have Miami and Clemson, Florida State. These 3 schools are expected to be atop the ACC rankings from a recruiting standpoint. SMU is right there in the 247 rankings. They're third. The On3 rankings, they're fourth. This is a team that's going to come in here and scare the bejeebus out of a lot of programs.
Yeah, no question. I was surprised that Rivals had them ranked at number 34. But I don't know. I think Rivals has fallen off a little bit in some of the recruiting. But anyway, yeah, SMU has been impressive. I mean, like you said, they're the third-ranked ACC team in the country by 247 and number 4 by On3, both in the top 25 recruiting classes in the country. And they're bringing on some serious talent. I mean, they flipped a 4-star quarterback, a guy named Ty Hawkins from TCU to SMU, and then they landed a 4-star offensive tackle that tons of people were after, a guy named Odoms. That's just a sample of what they're doing down in Texas and trying to rebuild this program to where they can compete for the ACC title. They're serious about it. I mean, they won the conference they were in last year, the American Athletic Conference, and were vying for a New Year's Six bowl game. Nearly got it, and I guess Liberty got that spot. But the SMU people are so serious. We've talked a little bit about that last week, about how much money they've raised, and they're just really excited about being a part of the ACC and bringing in new schools that people in Dallas aren't that familiar with, except by watching them on TV. And so having North Carolina, Duke, Virginia basketball rolling into Dallas, and Clemson, Florida State football, and Notre Dame, it's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. Questions coming in for Hootie Ratcliffe. Put them in the feed. I'll relay them live on air. This is a question that's to be expected, and I would expect this question is going to gain even more steam and momentum. Does Hootie think that Coach Elliott is going to name a starting quarterback early so the fan base and the team can rally around one leader?
That's a great question, and I've wondered about that myself. We haven't seen him since spring football, so I'm surprised that none of us had the forethought to have asked him that back then. But I guess we'll have to wait till training camp in early August, which is just around the corner. Or we may be able to ask him down at the ACC kickoff in Charlotte is this month, actually, so we may be able to ask him down there. But I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic we're faced with here. You have that aspect of whether you want to name a starting quarterback early, like the question asks, and give fans a chance to rally around that, or do you want to prolong that competition through training camp to try to bring out the best in both Anthony Colandrea and Tony Muskett, and see how far you can push them in camp to improve their game. I'm kind of leaning toward, I think, that he may wait until late.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a fierce competition because both of those guys really want the starting job. We don't know whether that's going to carry over from last year, since Muskett was the starter, didn't lose his job because of injury. Even though Colandrea made some great strides in the spring to eliminate some of the mistakes that haunted him last year and hurt the team, but it's part of his maturation as a young quarterback. I'm trying to put myself in coach's shoes. A lot of times you want you want to string out that competition and push both those guys throughout training camp and may the best man win.
So you see it going deep into training camp before a starter is acknowledged or anointed?
I think coaches prefer it that way because that way if you name a starter early in camp, the other guy may tend to
coast.
Well, maybe, but the guy that's not starting may not have his heart into it like he normally would. So I can't imagine either one of these guys backing off. But some strange dynamics happen sometimes when a guy's named starter early. I think that's one reason he didn't name a starter at the end of the spring. He wants to see how these guys develop over the summer and some of the 7-on-7 drills and how they develop chemistry with their receivers and just how far they can improve their game. So I kind of believe, just trying to read a coach's mind, that a lot of coaches would like to string out that competition throughout the training camp.
Kevin says SMU is going to be a fantastic team because of the NIL and the money the program has and what they can do for their roster and their athletes. 100% agree with you on that one.
Kevin is correct.
Logan Wells-Claylow, welcome to the program. Thank you for watching the show. This question's come in. Renee Pettiford watching the program. What is the defense going to do differently to fix what was a point of concern last year?
Well, that's a good question, too.
I think the defense is going to be very much improved.
I think part of it is I'm sure that John Rudzinski is knocking on wood, hoping that all these guys can stay healthy. That hurt them big time last year because they didn't have a lot of depth, and they were forced to play probably more freshmen than almost any defense in FBS, which could help them this year because now they should have some depth because they have so many guys returning from injury, and then all these guys that picked up experience as freshmen. So they should be a deeper team, a little more experienced. They have some guys on that side of the ball, Jerry, that have played not only 5 years of football, but 6, and even one guy is coming in for his 7th season of college football. I mean, how many times have we seen that in our lifetime? So there's no excuses for this defense to be anywhere in the same category as last year. There's guys who can play on that side of the ball, and some really good guys. I think their secondary will be highly improved. They got 2 of the highest rated safeties in the ACC, according to Pro Football Focus, and they've got a load of guys in the front 7 with tons of experience and some talented freshmen and a couple of transfers that can really play football. So I just think the fact that there's so much experience returns, they can't help but be better. And perhaps if they do have any unfortunate injuries, that they'll at least have some experienced guys in there to fill in the spot.
Very well said. Questions on the football team, let us know. We'll put them in the feed. Do we think that this football team, going from summer into training camp, if you had 3 questions to follow, which would those 3 be? Do you have the offensive line atop that question list?
Offensive line is definitely at the top of that list. I think Coach Hefferman is doing the right things and trying to bring that offensive line along. All these guys have experience. They just have to, and I'm sure they've worked hard in the weight room in the off season to build their strength and build their bodies to be able to take on some of the better defenses that they're going to run into. But That's definitely, they've got to prove it on the field. And I think that may be the key to the whole season as to whether this offensive line can protect Musket and Calandria and open holes for Kobe Pace to run through.
Yeah.
And I think that's the number one question mark. I think number two question mark is special teams. Last year, that was a huge blow to Virginia. The just poor performance by special teams all around, and they have to do something to correct that. And I think Tony Elliott has personally invested more time in making sure that they don't have the breakdowns that they had a year ago, which cost them some ball games and made some games closer than they should have been. And that's something that cannot be neglected. I can't tell you how much emphasis they need to put on that phase of the football team. And number three, I'm not really sure what the number three question mark would be at this point, because they have a lot of guys returning on both sides of the ball. I guess, and it kind of plays into the offensive line, but whether they can establish a running game that they can rely on, which at times they had that a little bit last year when Paris Jones was at his best before he got injured out in Louisville. We're glad to see that he's progressing and he's still not quite back to 100% again, but they don't have a lot of experienced running backs in the program, so that's it's going to be interesting to see if they can establish a running game that can open up the offense and take a little pressure off the quarterbacks.
One of the things I'm going to be following closely is how the fan base responds to the program and how the fan base fills Scott Stadium.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Scott Stadium much more close to capacity because it has such an impact on recruiting. There were times where you saw it from the press box. I saw it from a bleacher seat as a fan, where it was a half-empty stadium at best.
Yeah, and that sends a bad signal to recruits for sure. It doesn't matter how well everything else is going if your stadium is half empty, and plus you're losing a lot of money for the entire athletic program. We've talked about how important it is. Football is the engine that drives the train financially, and for Virginia to be able to continue to be one of the top five overall athletic programs in the country, it costs money. It's not cheap. They're one of the schools in the ACC that has more teams, men's and women's teams, than a lot of the other schools. Some of these schools don't even compete in some of the sports. So it's very important. It's important to the players too, because they feed off the crowd and they feed off the energy of the crowd. And if you've got a stadium that's half asleep and half empty, it makes it difficult sometimes.
Especially in a tough, and taking it off the football field, in a tough economy, half-empty stadium radiates or resonates even throughout the community with economics. Shopkeepers, merchants, restaurants, hoteliers, they don't see the boost of game day in full force with half-empty stadiums. So we want the fan experience on game day and throughout a game day weekend to be at close to capacity, if not capacity. Time will tell on that. Comments are coming in. Yes, we'll talk about the Olympics. John Blair, thanks for watching on LinkedIn. Yes, we'll talk about the Wahoos in the Olympics here in a matter of moments. But dot the I's and cross the T's on anything you want to cover football-wise, Hootie.
Well, it's getting close to that time. I guess we should mention that in those football recruiting rankings that Virginia was number 45 by 247 and Rivals, and number 57 on 3. That was before the Costner commitment, so they might climb a few spots in all 3 of those rankings. But football's just right around the corner, Jerry. I guess the signal for sports writers and media is the ACC kickoff, which they used to move around the South to various golf resorts because Gene Corrigan wanted to put a huge emphasis on ACC football back during his tenure. John Swafford kind of went away from that, and now with the ACC headquarters in Charlotte, everything seems to be in Charlotte, including the kickoff. It doesn't move around anymore. It's always in downtown Charlotte.
What's the ACC headquarters like?
I haven't been to the new headquarters. I've been in every ACC headquarters from the old days in the late 70s, which was in an old brick building in downtown Greensboro. It looked like a warehouse. They moved it to the outskirts of Greensboro into a little village under Corrigan, and then they moved into the great facility they had there just off of 85, which was a fantastic facility on the backed up against the Grandover golf courses. So I was familiar with all those, but I haven't had an opportunity to visit the new offices yet. So I don't know. It's in downtown Charlotte, but I don't know how they are.
The ACC kickoff is around the corner, the official launch of the football season. Will you attend any of the ACC kickoff?
Yeah, I'll be there. I think it's 4 or 5 days this year because now there's 17 football playing schools in the conference. So you have to spread it out. We used to be done in 2 days, and now it's going to be I think 4 days. I believe is correct. With a few schools each day, so I won't be there for the whole thing because it's pretty costly. Hotel in downtown Charlotte these days is about $300 a night.
That ain't cheap.
Not including parking. So you're right, it's not cheap, and I wonder if that might cut down on people being able to stay for the duration of the entire thing as opposed to going down for a day or two. But I'll be there. I don't think I've missed an ACC football kickoff since '77. So, which is pretty good.
That's pretty awesome.
Pretty good because they like I said, they've had them all over the place from Wintergreen and the Homestead in Virginia to Pinehurst and Asheville and some places at Grandover in Greensboro, down to Kiowa Island in South Carolina to Saddlebrook in Florida, to Lake Lanier and just north of Atlanta. So they've had them all over the place, and it's usually fun. That used to be sort of the official trigger, and then for many years, once I came to Charlottesville, I was on the ACC tour, which was a rather unique thing where 30 or 35 sports journalists from the ACC would get on a bus in Greensboro, and we would visit each ACC school for a day. That would last a couple of weeks, and if any, toward the latter end of before they stopped having the tour, if any ACC team was in one of those early season games at the Meadowlands or in Anaheim or various other places around the country, we would fly to to those games. I remember being in a game at the Meadowlands one night, flying to LA the next day and taking in an ACC game in Anaheim the next night. So it was kind of fun, and it was kind of like a rolling fraternity on a bus for 2 weeks. But it gave you great insight into the ACC football, and you got to know the coaches and some of their assistant coaches and some of the administration at each school, which sad to say we don't have those kind of contact anymore.
What's the craziest thing you've seen on a trip like that?
I'm not sure I can say that on the air.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
But
you've seen some crazy stuff, haven't you?
It would make an interesting book and,
yeah.
and maybe even a movie.
Yeah, I bet it would. I absolutely bet it would. Hootie, we have who's in the Olympics to highlight. That's part of your sky shooting column. And it's not just guys, it's not just swimming. We have tennis players. We have rowers. We have a soccer player, track and field athletes. I mean, we have Paralympians. We have someone in equestrian. Virginia is well represented in the Paris Olympics. I will highlight this for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 athletes in swimming competitions. 2 athletes in tennis competitions. 2 athletes in rowing competitions. 1 soccer player female. 1 track and field athlete. 2 track and field athletes, shot put and pole vault. 2 Paralympians competing in it. 1 in equestrian as well. 1 playing a game called goal ball.
I don't even know what that is.
I don't know what goal ball is either, my friend. But UVA well represented with current and former student athletes in the Paris Olympics.
Yeah, it's an amazing list of people, and that doesn't even include the young man from Western Albemarle who is not officially a UVA student at this point, but he will be there as well. And, of course, the head coach of the U.S. Women's Olympic team is Todd DeSorbo of UVA. So it's going to be Wahoos all over Paris for sure with that many swimmers in particular. As we mentioned earlier, Danielle Collins and Emma Navarro on the tennis team. Heidi Long representing England in rowing. Emily Sonnet on the women's soccer team. Filip Mihailovic, I think.
I think you got that right.
Croatia, representing Croatia in the shot put. He was a great shot putter at Virginia. The last interview I ever did at the newspaper, and I never got to write the story because my job came to an end before I got a chance to write it, was Bridget Guy, who's now Bridget Guy Williams, representing in the USA in track and field and women's pole vault. She did great things at Virginia. Sky Dahl, a rising senior at UVA, USA rowing as a Paralympian. Matt Simpson, again, UVA law, Paralympian in goal ball. Again, we'll have to look up what that is because I don't know. I've never heard of goal ball before, but I'm curious to see what that is. And then Will Coleman, UVA College of Arts and Sciences, who's was not a varsity athlete at UVA, but he'll be competing in equestrian. And just a host of swimmers. Amy Canny, representing South Africa. Kate Douglas, Paige Madden, Alex Walsh, Gretchen Walsh, Emma Weber, all representing USA in swimming. So be a lot of orange and blue there at Olympic Village.
And the great thing about with what we do, it gives us content coverage for the summer, the dog days of summer.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about last week about how UVA fans view the Directors Cup and being so good with a complete athletic program like they have, because somebody pointed out the other day, he says, a lot of schools don't have anything to root for after basketball season's over. He said, not only do we have great spring sports at UVA, but you've got guys competing in the NBA Summer League. You've got pro golfers on the PGA Tour. You've got all these people in the Olympics. You've got Navarro and Collins playing at Wimbledon. You've got guys that playing Major League Baseball. There's always something to root for if you're a Wahoo fan.
And talking about baseball, we have a little bit of baseball news in the Golden Nuggets portion of the column, and we got some Wahoos playing in the Summer League here. 5 former UVA players are competing in the NBA Summer League. Armand Franklin with the Nuggets, Reese Beekman with the Warriors, Jay Huff with the Magic, Ryan Dunn, of course, with the Suns, Kihei Clark with the Jazz, and Diakite's been picked up by the Brooklyn Nets. Kyle Guy playing European basketball. And, of course, Andrew Abbott is on fire with the Cincinnati Reds, Hootie Ratcliffe.
Yeah, we hope to have Kyle Guy on an upcoming show. We thought we were going to have him this week, but we weren't able to connect for today. But would love to hear his story. He was telling, somebody was telling a part of his recruiting story the other day on Twitter, I think, and he said that, well, that's only part of the story. And I said, we'd love to have you come on our show and tell us the whole story. And he said, I would love to do that. So we'll have him on soon. And Andrew Abbott is on fire again. I mean, had one of the best rookie seasons for a pitcher in history last year with the Cincinnati Reds, and was dominating as a senior for Brian O'Connor a couple of years ago. But he's now won 4 consecutive starts this season, 6 of his last 7, and through 7 shutout innings, 3 hit the Rockies last night, struck out 8, walked only 2, as the Reds continue on a roll. They've got a really nice young baseball team, and he's been a key figure on that club.
We're having the Ty Jerome comments come in the feed. See if you can get Ty on the show as well, fellas.
Would love to get Ty on the show.
Love to have Ty Jerome.
Might be able to get him in here live because I know
he's got a basketball camp.
He has a camp here, yeah. So we'd love to get him in. Sometimes he'll bring in some of the UVA teammates that he like, Mr. Hunter and some
DeAndre
others.
Hunter.
Yeah, so maybe we'll get lucky and get 1 or 2 of those guys in here.
That'd be absolutely fantastic. Any other news and notes or tidbits you want to get out there, Hootie?
I thought it was interesting that a guy who he went to Princeton, but he did his got his master's of business administration degree here at the Darden School in 2006. A guy named Chris Patrick has been promoted to the general manager of the Washington Capitals. So Wahoos in hockey and everything else, they're everywhere.
Wahoo's well represented across the sports landscape.
Did we find out how Emma's doing? Or
her match slated to start in 16 minutes.
Okay, so
I'm following it closely on ESPN. Yeah. 16 minutes for the Emma Navarro match. Go Hoos will follow what she does in Wimbledon, and of course the Paris Olympics right around the corner. My friend, your scatter shooting column, my favorite of all the columns you do. JerryRatcliffe.com. Visit the website, JerryRatcliffe.com, for all your UVA news and notes. Judah Wickower behind the camera. Hootie, the column, crushed it on the show and is crushing it on your website.
Thank you. It's always great to be with you for a little over an hour every Tuesday morning, and I think we have great chemistry, and I think we're giving people something they don't get anywhere else.
I concur 100%. I 100% agree with that. Find the Jerry and Jerry Show anywhere you get your podcasting and social media content. We encourage you to visit jerryratcliffe.com. The I Love CVille Show is up at 12:30 p.m. Thank you kindly for joining us. For Hootie and Judah, I'm Jerry. So long, everybody.